Alright, settle in. Tonight we step barefoot onto the creaking wooden planks of Edo, Japan's bustling 17th century capital, where the air smells faintly of charcoal smoke and hinoki wood, and the streets hum with quiet routines more rhythmic than rowdy. As you shuffle down the narrow alleyways in your split-toe socks, one thing becomes immediately clear: you are grubby. Between the dusty road from the countryside, the sticky humidity, and the faint panic of arriving in an enormous city where you don't quite speak the dialect, your first need isn't food. It's a bath, but not just any bath. In Edo, bathing isn't just about cleaning yourself. It's a ritual, a form of social etiquette, and, let's be honest, a bit of a status flex. You head toward the neighborhood sento, a public bathhouse where the scent of steaming water and cypress boards welcomes you like a long-lost cousin. And yes, you're going to be very naked. Get used to it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're tuning in from somewhere cozy, let me know your location and what time it is where you are. I love seeing how far this little sleep train travels. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step through the curtain, literally, a Norin cloth hanging at the doorway, dyed deep blue and split in the middle, and are hit by a wave of warm, humid air. There's the sound of splashing, quiet conversation, and wooden buckets clunking softly against the floor. The scent of yuzu citrus, wood smoke, and human warmth fills your nose. You're in the sento, and if you're expecting bubbles and privacy, well, you probably won't survive this. The room is simple and steamy. Slatted floors, a long row of low stools and wooden pails along one wall, and the bath itself, rectangular, tiled, hot enough to make your kneecaps reconsider. Everyone washes before entering the tub. You notice it immediately. People squatting on their stools, ladling warm water over themselves from shallow buckets, scrubbing their arms and backs with cloths, and taking their sweet, meditative time. Soap, by the way, isn't a given. In Edo, imported soap was expensive and rare. Most people used rice bran, known as nuka, mixed with water into a grainy paste. It smells slightly nutty and leaves your skin smooth but not squeaky. It's exfoliating in the gentlest way, like being massaged by a cloud that's slightly disappointed in you. Once you're clean, really clean, not just modern swipe of a washcloth clean, you step into the bath. It's hot, very hot. Like, why am I being poached alive hot? But once you adjust, the heat seeps into your bones, into your scalp, even into the worry you brought with you. Someone sighs nearby, long and theatrical. You get the feeling this is half for relaxation, half performance. And yet, it's not silent. Conversations float around you. Someone complains about the price of turnips. Another recounts a fox spirit seen near the river. A woman tells a friend how her son got a promotion from rice measurer to gate clerk, so much more prestige. Even the bath attendant, a tall man with impressively shaved eyebrows and a towel over one shoulder, occasionally chuckles softly at a joke he's heard for the 5th time today. Historians still argue whether Edo's bathhouses were strictly gender-separated or allowed mixed bathing during certain periods. But for tonight, it doesn't matter. The vibe is respectful. Everyone here has seen hundreds of bodies. Yours is not special, which is oddly comforting. You run your fingers along the bath's edge. It's made of hinoki cypress, smooth from decades of hands just like yours. The smell is faintly resinous, clean, and ancient. Your thoughts drift. This isn't just about sweat and dirt. In Edo, bathing was linked to Shinto purity and Buddhist cleanliness. To be clean was to be spiritually aligned. That's why people bathed so often, sometimes daily, even in winter. You sit back. The ceiling is foggy. Steam curls around wooden beams. Somewhere outside, you hear a bell, maybe signaling curfew, or just the tofu seller making their last round. A small boy next to you dumps an entire bucket of water on his head and grins. An older man scratches his back with a wooden stick. A woman wrings out her cloth with practiced grace. The bath is a public stage, and every movement is choreographed in centuries-old rhythm. Quirky fact, some bathhouses offered extra services, like poetry readings, massages, or hair oiling, often for a small fee and a wink. They weren't always entirely innocent, either, but tonight's is a quiet local place. The kind where someone might leave you a persimmon on the bench if you looked particularly tired. The water sloshes gently as someone gets out. You realize you've been soaking for longer than intended. Time stretches in here, Nothing is rushed. You feel like steamed tofu in the best possible way. You finally rise, wrap yourself in a thin cotton towel, and step out onto the wooden floor. Someone offers you a cup of warm barley tea. Your skin is pink, your joints feel like jelly, and somewhere in the deepest layers of your muscles, centuries of Edo calm have seeped in. You survived your first Edo bath, barely. You shuffle back onto the street, feet warm and a little wobbly, steam still rising faintly from your shoulders. The evening air has cooled, lightly scented with charcoal and grilling eggplant from a vendor cart nearby. Edo doesn't rush you. Nothing here does. And now that your skin feels like a rice dumpling left too long in hot water, it's time to address the next layer of daily hygiene, your teeth. That's right, hygiene in Edo doesn't end at bathing. It continues in little rituals woven throughout the day, starting with the smallest but most telling gestures, like the humble toothpick. After meals, people don't reach for minty toothpaste tubes or plastic floss. They reach for kuchibashi, small wooden toothpicks, carved elegantly and often reused. You see men and women lightly covering their mouths with one hand as they pick, because manners, of course, and then gently spitting into tiny ceramic spittoons. It's not uncouth, it's expected, and the silence is almost ceremonial. You're handed one. The end is curved just slightly, softened from repeated use. It smells faintly of plum, probably from someone chewing on salted umebashi, the pickled fruit used both for flavor and, as some believed, to ward off illness. It's sour enough to make your jaw clench, but hey, who needs Listerine when nature already handed you vinegar-soaked power fruit? And speaking of mouths, you're soon invited to join a little-known Edo habit, brushing your teeth with charcoal. Sounds dramatic, but it's oddly satisfying. People used crushed charcoal mixed with water and sometimes salt or green tea powder. The gritty paste is dabbed onto a rough tsuj wood brush or simply onto your finger. Then you scrub, gently, methodically. Don't worry, your teeth aren't turning black forever. In fact, they feel astonishingly smooth afterward. Historians still debate how widespread these practices were among all classes, or whether they were mostly limited to city dwellers and wealthier tradespeople. But it's clear that oral hygiene was a recognized, routine part of daily self-care, even in an age without Instagram smiles. As you rinse your mouth with warm tea, someone offers you a second, more eccentric item, a twig. It's a miswak-style chew stick, often taken from bitter plants like willow or mulberry. You chew one end until it frays into bristles, then scrub. It's pocket-sized, compostable, and absolutely zero waste. Modern sustainability influencers eat your heart out. And this isn't just for the fancy folk. Even children in Edo are given little sticks or cloths to mimic adult toothbrushing. It's part of learning to polish the self, a phrase that blends physical grooming with moral improvement. In this world, clean habits equals clean soul. But wait, there's more. Next, you're handed a dab of clove oil, pressed onto a tiny square of rice paper. Locals believe it freshens the breath and strengthens the gums. The sharp taste tingles your tongue and clears your sinuses. It's oddly pleasant, like a tiny slap from a medicinal fairy. And just when you think you're done with the dental exploration, you hear a snicker from the corner. Someone's teasing another for their black teeth. Yes, black. Enter the world of ohaguro, the Edo practice of dyeing one's teeth jet black using an iron-based mixture. It's considered beautiful, dignified, and, get this, a sign of maturity and loyalty, especially among married women and elite courtiers. The process smells like iron water and vinegar and turns the mouth into a void of shimmering ink. You see a woman preparing the dye in a delicate lacquered bowl, humming as she dips a small brush and paints each tooth like it's a tiny canvas. You decline. Your Edo transformation has its limits. Still, the practice is so common that people compose poems about it. Love poems. Nothing says eternal devotion like, "Your teeth, black as crow feathers, make my heart tremble like spring bamboo." Mainstream dental hygiene fact? Check. Quirky fringe practice? Double check. And yes, historians still argue whether ohaguro was more about status signaling, dental health, iron has antimicrobial properties, or just fashion. The truth is probably some tangled mix of all three. You step back into the alley now, mouth tingling, fingers smelling faintly of plum vinegar and charcoal. A small mirror in a vendor stall catches your face. You look like someone who's been thoroughly scrubbed, poked, and mildly judged. But hey, welcome to Edo. A breeze stirs the paper lanterns overhead, and the city keeps moving. Somewhere, a rice vendor calls out, dragging a little wheeled cart behind him. You spot a group of men sitting on crates, picking their teeth and chatting about sumo ranking. And above them, A passing woman laughs through painted lips, her jet-black teeth flashing like lacquered pearls. In Edo, hygiene isn't a hidden affair. It's right there in the street, in the banter, in the tiny rituals that hold the fabric of this enormous city together. And as you keep walking, your gums gently sore and your breath tingling with herbal sharpness, you realize daily hygiene here isn't just practical. It's oddly relaxing. You take a left at the lantern with the faded chrysanthemum design, dodging a cart piled high with dried fish and a sleepy-looking cat curled up beside a tofu stall. The scent of charcoal gives way to something steamier, something familiar now. You're back at another sento, but this one's different. It's larger, louder. There's laughter inside. You peek past the split curtain. Yep, it's a full house. And unlike your first visit, this time you don't get the quiet, meditative vibe. This is a social bath and you're soaking with strangers. Everyone's naked, of course, again. But now you're noticing the choreography, how Edoites move through the space like it's a well-rehearsed play. Splash, scoop, scrub, dunk. It's like being part of an unspoken language where the verbs are wash, soak, nod politely. There's something about being naked with strangers that short-circuits formality. A wealthy merchant lathers up beside a carpenter. An old woman with folded arms sits on a stool, muttering about the heat. Two teenagers flick water at each other until an attendant glares. It's egalitarian in the most exposed way possible. You find your spot and begin your routine. You don't even hesitate now. Warm water, cloth, scrub, rinse. You've learned the rhythm. You've joined the club. Edo's bathhouses weren't just about hygiene. They were about community. Here, gossip is exchanged more freely than coins. Deals are brokered. Poetry is shared. That merchant next to you? He's composing a haiku out loud. Something about steam, a frog, and his ex-wife. You politely nod as if you understand the metaphor. Historians still debate whether these bathhouses served as unofficial town halls, or even spaces for political dialogue among certain classes. But many agree that these steamy tubs were vital community centers, binding neighborhoods more effectively than any official meeting room. There's a phrase passed around in these walls: clean skin, clear conscience, and you get the sense that people believe it. Now, about the structure itself, it's simple, but there's beauty in the details. The roof slants sharply, allowing steam to rise and escape through latticework. Wooden beams are darkened from decades of heat. Buckets are stacked neatly by the wall, each with slight scorch marks along the bottom from drying near the furnace. The bath itself might be tiled in blue, or it could just be dark from the mineral-rich water. You notice how the bath attendant glides across the room, never rushing, towel folded just so, ladling warm water into a narrow channel that sends it trickling toward a secondary tub. It's mesmerizing. Oh, and etiquette is everything. You do not cannonball. You do not splash too hard. You definitely don't let your towel touch the bathwater. That's a universal faux pas. The towel, instead, rests on your head like a tiny, soggy crown of civility. A man near you has his eyes closed, lips pursed, humming a slow melody. You recognize it as a folk song from the Tohoku region. Another man cracks his knuckles underwater, sighing dramatically with each pop. An old woman scoops water onto her knees with the care of a tea ceremony. It's mundane, but strangely beautiful. There's also a side culture within the bath regulars. You know the type. They have their own stools, their own buckets. Some bring fragrant herbs to steep near the furnace, mugwort, yuzu peels, or crushed cedar tips. If you're lucky, one might let you share the scent trail if you don't annoy them first. One woman has a scar shaped like a leaf on her shoulder. She smiles at you. You don't ask. She doesn't offer. It's a moment of bathhouse intimacy that doesn't need words. You start to understand something deeper now. In Edo, vulnerability creates connection. No one's hiding behind status symbols or silk robes in here. And the laughter? It's the kind that bubbles up from the belly, softened by steam, echoing lightly against the wood. A quirky tidbit for you? Some bathhouses had storytellers or amateur performers, people who'd sit on a low stool in the corner and regale bathers with tales of ghost women, thieving tanuki, or romantic disasters involving umbrellas and mistaken identities. Tonight, it's just a man reciting lines from a kabuki play. His voice rises and falls with surprising drama, arms gesturing gently above the waterline. A few people clap lazily. You're starting to prune. The tips of your fingers resemble pickled radish slices. Someone near you dunks their head fully under with a splash that earns a few raised eyebrows. The bath attendant makes a soft TSK. Time to get out. You rise slowly, skin flushed and thoughts soft around the edges. There's a towel waiting, a bit scratchy, smelling of cedar smoke and soap root. You dry off, then step into your Geta sandals. They clack politely against the stone floor as you exit. Outside, the street sounds sharper after the blur of steam. You inhale deeply. The air smells of pine, soot, and grilled squid from the stall 2 doors down. You've soaked beside strangers. You've earned your place. And now you understand why in Edo public bathing wasn't weird. It was wonderfully normal. You step back onto the dirt-packed street, towel draped around your shoulders like a badge of honor. The night buzzes softly, frogs in a distant canal, a merchant's wind chime clinking as the breeze moves down the alley. Your fingers are still a little pruny. But now you've soaked in the heat of Edo's public life. You've earned some sleep, right? Wrong. Because now you're about to meet the unsung hygiene masters of Edo, the washerwomen. At first glance, it's not glamorous. You follow the sound of splashing to a narrow riverbank tucked behind a row of homes. The women here are bent over wide, shallow baskets, scrubbing clothes against smooth stones with bare arms and a tempo that belongs more in a drum circle than a laundry line. There's rhythm to it: swish, slap, squeeze, twist, splash. You sit on a rock nearby, trying to be invisible, but you're offered a turn at the basin anyway. The cloth is coarse, the water cold, and within 30 seconds, your forearms start to ache. The women laugh, not unkindly, just knowingly. You've just entered one of the most physically demanding jobs in town. But here's the surprising part: soap is rare. Most washing is done with ashes, bran water, or plant suds, especially from the soapwort or torcabudo flower family. It's all about agitation, soaking, and technique, not lather. Clothes are pounded with wooden paddles or stomped with bare feet inside huge wooden tubs. It's not just washing, it's cardio. And not all laundry is equal. A samurai's ceremonial robe gets a different treatment than a fishmonger's apron. Some items are simply beaten and aired, not soaked. Others are rinsed in scented water, especially garments belonging to high-ranking courtesans or shrine attendants. You watch one woman methodically sprinkle water mixed with dried persimmon peel over a bundle of cloth. It smells faintly citrusy, almost clean enough to eat. She folds it carefully into a square and sets it aside on a bamboo mat. Historians still argue whether Edo's laundry practices were more advanced than contemporary European methods. What's clear is that the process emphasized water conservation and garment longevity, even if it lacked the bubble-drenched pageantry we're used to today. It's not all work and wringing hands, though. This riverbank is a gossip hub. As the cloth is cleaned, so are reputations, rumors, and weekly grievances. Someone mentions a neighbor's runaway chicken. Another snickers about a man who fell asleep during his own wedding procession. You learn more about the neighborhood in 10 minutes than you would reading a whole town register. Then comes drying. No dryers here, just rope lines stretched between trees or wooden racks outside windows. The cloth flaps in the breeze like silent conversation. Every family has its signature folding method. You're shown one that looks like origami meets practicality. 2 tight rolls, 1 square fold, and a final tuck. And don't forget ironing, or rather, the Edo version of it, using hot metal weights or simply pressing garments under futon mattresses overnight. Yes, really, the sleep on your shirt technique, not recommended for your denim jacket. The washerwomen's hands are worn, stained, and precise. Their movements are hypnotic. You watch one smooth a robe with fingers so fluid it looks like water is obeying her. She hums a lullaby you don't recognize. Another belts out a folk tune about a frog who stole laundry and fled downriver with a bride's sash. You're beginning to understand that cleanliness here isn't flashy. It's built into the bones of daily life. It doesn't advertise itself with strong floral scents or lemon bleach. Instead, it whispers through steamed fabric, bran-rinsed sleeves, and the quiet authority of women who've been washing since before you were born, or maybe even in your last life. A quirky fact: sometimes, to whiten certain garments, people used a rinse made from crushed oyster shells and plum vinegar. It was applied with a brush, then dried under reflective boards to amplify the sunlight. Nature's bleach, Edo style. And no, it didn't smell like the beach, more like ambition. As the sun starts to rise, because yes, washerwomen often start before dawn, you help gather damp cloths and hang them carefully. Your back aches, your knuckles are pink, and your understanding of cleanliness has shifted. You realize something small but profound. Cleaning someone else's clothes is an act of trust, a kind of care passed from hand to hand. You're not just scrubbing cloth. You're smoothing stories, rinsing yesterday's weariness, pressing a fresh start. You bow slightly as you leave the riverbank, your own sleeves damp, your heart weirdly full. The women don't bow back, but one tosses you a folded hand towel. You nod in thanks. Steam rises from a distant bathhouse. Lanterns flicker out one by one. Laundry flutters on a line like tired butterflies. You walk on. You're still not ready to sleep, but you are somehow cleaner. You continue down the quiet side street, the faint dampness on your sleeves now cool in the morning air. As you pass another open window, you catch a surprising scent, something floral, delicate, and expensive. You stop. A shadow moves inside the home, and then you see him, a samurai, kneeling calmly as a servant gently combs through his long, black hair. That's when it hits you. Even the warriors here smell good. In Edo, cleanliness wasn't just for courtesans and merchants. The samurai class, those fearsome defenders of law, order, and very sharp swords, were often obsessed with grooming. It wasn't vanity, it was duty, because being well-kempt was a reflection of discipline. And discipline was everything. You watch as the attendant dips a comb into a small lacquered bowl of binsukabura, a kind of waxy, perfumed pomade made from camellia oil. It's gently massaged into the hair, giving it that smooth, glistening sheen favored in portraits and kabuki performances. Not a strand out of place. And don't even think about a messy top knot. That iconic chamage hairstyle, the shaved front, the pulled back knot, wasn't just fashionable. It helped samurai keep their helmets steady during battle. Function meets form. Though in peacetime, it also served as a walking signal of class, control, and tradition. You catch your reflection in a puddle. Let's just say your hair is not quite samurai material, but you're offered a seat. The attendant gives you a once-over, probably recalculating his day now that he has a novice to handle. Still, he nods politely and starts working through your tangled mess. First with a wide-toothed wooden comb, then a finer one dipped in lightly warmed oil. It smells of sandalwood and citrus, and you swear your scalp actually relaxes. Here's a detail most people miss. Hair grooming wasn't just about appearances. It was a ritual, a pause, a moment of grounding. Samurai often began the day with grooming and ended it the same way, brushing away the tension like dust from armor. Historians still argue whether daily oiling was a standard routine or reserved for ceremonial days and high-ranking households. But evidence from grooming sets and preserved texts suggests that hair care was an everyday act of maintenance and self-respect. And this goes beyond brushing. Eyebrows, delicately trimmed. Facial hair, carefully sculpted or removed completely. A rough beard was rarely a statement. It was often a sign that something had gone wrong, like illness, mourning, or too much sake the night before. You glance around the room. On a nearby shelf sits a small silver mirror, its back carved with a crane in flight. Beside it is a razor blade, folded neatly in a wooden case, its edge sharpened to frightening precision. The attendant offers it, not as a threat but as a suggestion. You lift your chin. He shaves slowly, methodically, first your cheeks, then under your chin, finally the fuzz around your ears. And yes, your eyebrows get a little tidy up. Then comes the warm towel press. Steam seeps into your face, your pores, your soul. You feel 5 years younger, 2 inches taller, and vaguely more trustworthy. A quirky tidbit? Many samurai also perfumed their undergarments by hanging them near pots of simmering incense. Imagine your boxer briefs infused with sandalwood and sage. It's like weaponizing elegance. Now comes the final touch. A small dab of white rice powder, patted lightly onto the nape of your neck and collarbone. Not too much, just enough to show that you care. In Edo, visible cleanliness was a public service. You didn't just represent yourself. You represented your house, your clan, your upbringing. As you stand, the attendant hands you a small cloth to blot your face. Your skin feels like rice paper, light, clean, perfectly matte. You bow. He bows back. There's no fee, just a gentle smile and a whisper. Don't mess it up before lunch. Stepping outside, you feel a subtle shift. Strangers glance your way with faint approval. You smell faintly of camellia oil and quiet confidence. You're no longer the lost traveler with dust on your feet. You're someone with silky samurai hair and properly trimmed brows. You've been folded into Edo's rhythm. And now, as the morning haze lifts and a paper fan flutters lazily on a merchant's stall, you walk forward, lighter, cleaner, a little sharper around the edges. Your sandals crunch lightly over a path of swept pebbles as you continue your slow wander through the back streets of Edo. The city is waking up now. Curtains part, shutters creak open, and the smell of grilled rice cakes begins to drift lazily from tiny stalls. But just as you start to imagine breakfast, a different need bubbles up. a need that transcends time, culture, and class. Let's just say nature calls. And in Edo, answering that call comes with a set of rituals that are humbling. You look around. No public restroom signs here. But if you know what to look for, say, a small wooden outbuilding behind a home, or a curious row of clay pots set discreetly near a garden, you'll find Edo's answer to your pressing problem. Toilets here are simple but shockingly efficient. Many are nothing more than a squat box over a pit, constructed of wood and stone. Some are shared by multiple families. Others are elevated slightly with a narrow staircase, giving the illusion of dignity while you concentrate. You're led to one such outhouse by a kind old woman who hands you a ladle and a cloth like she's passing down a sacred relic. She doesn't ask questions. She knows that look. Inside, there's no flush, no seat warmer, no polite soundtrack to cover awkward noises. Just a hole, a bucket of wood ash, a ladle for sprinkling water, and a healthy dose of humility. And here's the wild part, waste wasn't wasted. Edo had one of the most efficient waste systems in the pre-modern world. Human waste, called night soil, was collected and sold as fertilizer to local farmers. Some landlords even charged tenants less rent in exchange for the rights to their poop. Yes, your landlord literally profited off your bathroom habit. Historians still debate just how early these contracts began, but by the 18th century, night soil economies were well documented, with pricing based on diet, class, and volume. Talk about knowing your worth. As for cleaning up, well, forget toilet paper. Edoites used wooden spatulas called chugi, which were wiped, rinsed, and reused. Some wealthier households preferred soft paper squares made from mulberry bark, luxurious, but rare. Most folks just used water, and maybe some powdered ash or sand to finish the job. And before you cringe too hard, remember, today's bidets are just fancy water ladles with plumbing. You finish your business with as much grace as possible and sprinkle a bit of ash over the hole, just like you saw the old woman do earlier. There's no smell, no mess, just a faint earthy scent, like firewood and patience. Outside, a man in a wide straw hat is pulling a cart slowly down the alley. You recognize the smell before you recognize the profession, a night soil collector. He greets you with a bow and a joke about last night's miso soup. You're too stunned to laugh, but he seems used to that. A quirky tidbit? Some wealthier Edoites even perfumed their toilets by hanging sachets of incense or dried herbs from the rafters. Others lined the walls with cedar planks to absorb moisture and neutralize odor naturally. The goal wasn't to mask the process, it was to make it bearable. You rinse your hands at a nearby basin, using a ladle to pour water over your fingers. There's a small bar of ash soap, gritty but surprisingly effective. You dry off with a cloth hanging nearby, sun-bleached, stiff, and perfectly clean. The old woman nods as you return the ladle. She doesn't ask how it went. She just offers you a dried plum and walks off, muttering something about her grandson's messy habit. As you walk away, you reflect on how differently Edo handles such a universal need. There's no shame, just system, efficiency, routine. Everyone poops. But in Edo, everyone poops politely. And maybe, just maybe, you leave that little wooden building feeling a bit wiser, and a lot more appreciative of composting toilets. Your sandals tap forward. The sun climbs a little higher, and somewhere behind you, a farmer smiles as his cartload of future fertilizer makes its way toward the rice fields. Cleanliness, you realize, isn't just about soap and hot water. Sometimes it's about knowing how to return to the earth with grace. You meander through a narrow passage lined with sake barrels and baskets of vegetables, your feet cooled by the shadows cast from the tiled rooftops overhead. A breeze weaves through the alley, carrying with it a scent so distinct, so subtle yet unmistakably Edo, that you pause mid-step to breathe it in again. It's everywhere, that soft, woody, slightly citrus fragrance. And once you've noticed it, you start noticing it on everyone, on clothes, on skin, even lingering in the air outside homes and bathhouses. This is the scent of hinoki cypress wood, Edo's olfactory signature. You pass by a man fanning himself under a paper parasol. His robe sways with his motion, and even from several feet away, you catch the warm whisper of wood smoke and citrus peel. The smell isn't artificial. No perfumes or sprays here. It's baked into the city itself. Let's break it down. The bathhouses you've already visited? They're often built from hinoki, Japanese cypress prized not just for durability but for its clean, calming scent. When heated by bath steam, it releases a natural, slightly spicy aroma that lingers on skin and towels long after you've dried off. But that's only the beginning. Many homes in Edo burn cypress twigs or cedar shavings in small hearths. Clothes dried near these fires absorb the smoke like memory. It's the world's coziest passive fragrance strategy. And then there's incense, not the overpowering sticks you find in modern shops. Edoites favor refined blends: aloes wood, clove, cinnamon, and yes, hinoki, burned during meditation, tea ceremonies, or just before guests arrive. You pass one home where thin trails of smoke curl lazily through a paper screen. Cat blinks from behind it. Even the cat smells like serenity. A quirky tidbit: some wealthier households participated in incense games, where guests tried to guess scent blends by smell alone. Imagine a party where the winner isn't the loudest talker but the one with the best nose. Historians still argue whether the popularity of scent in Edo was due more to spiritual purity or aesthetic taste. Shinto practices emphasized purification, and scent was part of that cleansing aura. But the love for subtle fragrance also tied into Japan's deep appreciation for mono no aware, the gentle melancholy of fleeting beauty. And not everything smelled of wood and incense. You pass a young woman airing out a bundle of clothes dusted with rice bran and citrus peel powder, a traditional deodorizer. She pats each garment gently, then hangs them on a bamboo pole to catch the morning sun. Even body odor was handled differently. Rather than masking it with strong perfumes, Edoites took a preventative approach. Frequent bathing, naturally absorbent fabrics like hemp or cotton, and the occasional application of chrysanthemum paste or powdered green tea under the arms. You spot a street vendor fanning a tray of medicinal herbs. He offers you a pinch of something to rub between your fingers, kumazasa leaf powder used for foot odor. It smells fresh, like cut grass and quiet confidence. You realize the entire city is like a fragrance symphony. Warm wood, sun-dried linen, tea leaf, the occasional whiff of grilled fish, and underneath it all, the earthy tone of a place that values subtlety over splash. Even Edo's writing paper is lightly perfumed in some households, sandalwood dust or plum blossom oil dabbed onto the corners. A love letter isn't just read, it's smelled. And if you're thinking only the wealthy got to smell pleasant, think again. Vendors selling scented sachets made from fabric scraps and dried orange peel were common. Some people even kept tiny charcoal burners in their closets to perfume garments by proximity. By now, your own clothes have taken on the local signature. Your sleeves smell like steam, rice bran, and something faintly citrusy. You run your hand down your arm, and for a moment, you don't just smell like Edo, you feel like Edo. A group of children pass by, holding fans made from split bamboo and dyed paper. One of them fans your direction. A breeze hits you square in the face and you catch it again. That woody sweetness, sharp and calm all at once. You smile. You're beginning to understand that Edo's cleanliness wasn't just visible, it was atmospheric. It hung in the air, clung to fabric, and settled into wood. It wasn't about sterilization, it was about harmony. A clean scent in this city was part of the social contract. A promise that you'd put in the effort to make the world a little more bearable for everyone's noses. As you turn the corner, a gust of wind sends a paper charm fluttering from a doorway. You catch it before it hits the ground. It smells faintly of clove and prayer. You smile again. Smells like home. You tuck the softly scented paper charm into your sleeve and walk on, rounding another narrow corner just as a bell rings in the distance. Somewhere nearby, a merchant is starting his day with a ritual offering of tea and incense. The rhythm of the city continues, and so do its rituals. Next up, one that involves a razor, a cloth, and your entire face. You duck into a side alley where a hand-painted sign swings gently overhead. On it, the stylized character for Barber Camisoria is painted in faded black ink. Inside, a small wooden stool awaits, framed by sliding screens and a mirror that has seen more faces than a storyteller sees ears. The barber greets you with a bow and a knowing smile. He doesn't speak much, just gestures to the stool and unrolls a canvas of tools. Bone-handled razors, combs carved from cherry wood, soft brushes, small cotton pads, and, yes, a lacquer box that smells faintly of pine and menthol. He begins by tying a warm towel around your neck. You relax instantly as the steam opens your pores and the background hum of the city fades away. Here's the surprise. He's not just shaving your beard. He's shaving your whole face. In Edo, this was totally normal. Men and women alike had their entire faces shaved, not only to remove fuzz but to create a smooth, polished look considered refined and attractive. Cheeks, forehead, jawline, even the area around your eyes gets a once-over. And those eyebrows? They're trimmed and shaped too. Thick, unruly brows are out. Clean, defined arches? Much better. The The barber tilts your chin gently, his blade gliding with practiced grace. It's not just grooming, it's an art. Historians still debate how often these full-face shaves were performed, weekly, monthly, or just before festivals, but evidence suggests it was a regular habit for many Edoites who could afford it. And for others, it was a treat, a small indulgence in an otherwise modest life. The razor is dipped in water again, flicked dry, and passed with care just beneath your lower lip. You close your eyes. The blade barely whispers against your skin. As he works, the barber begins to hum, a tune from a popular kabuki play. It's about a woman disguised as a man, caught between love and duty. You don't know all the words, but the melody is easy to follow and oddly soothing. Then comes the rice bran exfoliation, a fine powder rubbed gently into your cheeks with a cotton pad. It smells nutty and earthy and leaves your skin softer than steamed tofu. Next, he pulls out a tiny brush and dabs a cool camellia oil tonic along your temples and behind your ears. Not too much, just enough to glow. A quirky tidbit? Some barbers in Edo were also amateur acupuncturists or even matchmakers. You could get your face shaved, ears cleaned, and hear gossip about the eligible widow 3 doors down, all in one appointment. And let's not forget ear cleaning, which the barber offers with a soft flick of the hand. He produces a mimikaki, a delicate, curved bamboo scoop. You nod curious. He carefully tilts your head and begins cleaning your ears with the gentleness of someone brushing lint from a scroll. The moment is absurdly intimate. You're wide awake, yet utterly relaxed. You feel like a polished river stone. You glance in the mirror as he finishes. Your face is a smooth, glowing map of Edo's care. Not a hair out of place. Even your ears feel lighter. The barber bows again, hands you a small packet of tooth powder wrapped in waxed paper, and motions toward the door. No coins are exchanged, just a nod from his assistant, who you now realize has been sweeping the same spot for 20 minutes, waiting patiently for your exit. Outside, the sun is higher now, casting sharp, golden lines across the wooden slats of nearby shops. You walk with a certain smoothness in your step, the faintest breeze brushing your freshly shaven cheek. Feels like you've been airbrushed by a cloud. And now you notice it, others with the same soft glow, same well-kept brows, same faint scent of camellia and rice powder. Barbers like yours are everywhere, scattered across the city, tiny temples of self-maintenance. And yet no one looks done up. It's not vanity, it's normal. A clean face in Edo is as routine as tying your sash or folding your bedding. It tells the world, I care about myself, and I won't offend your eyes. You pass another man just exiting a barbershop. He nods at you. You nod back. There's a quiet solidarity in this city of polished cheeks and precisely groomed temples. You run your fingers along your face again, just to confirm. Yes, still absurdly smooth. The next corner brings a scent of sweet bean paste, a squawk from a rooster 3 alleys over, and, perhaps most daunting of all, a row of bath attendants, standing beneath the red curtain of a particularly popular sento. You weren't planning to return to the bathhouse so soon, but curiosity, and a faint oiliness on your forehead, pulls you forward. This isn't a quiet neighborhood spot like before. This place has presence. The Norin sways dramatically. The lanterns are polished. The wooden sandals outside are perfectly aligned, like obedient little soldiers. You step in and are instantly clocked. Not with words, not with judgment, just a look, a half-second glance from the Yuna, the bath attendant, who silently logs your entire presentation. Posture, towel folding skills, even your foot washing technique. She doesn't say anything, but you suddenly feel very aware of your toenails. Welcome to the unofficial social scoreboard of Edo, public cleanliness etiquette. Inside the changing area, everything is orderly, fragrant with hinoki and faint jasmine. You slip out of your robe and approach the washing area. But now you feel observed. Not in a bad way, more like being reviewed during a school performance. You're part of a communal space, and how you clean yourself says something about who you are. A man nearby scrubs his back with a long-handled brush in perfect, slow arcs. Another pours water from his bucket in a single fluid motion. No splash, not a drop wasted. The woman across from him folds her towel into a triangle and lays it neatly on a bamboo rack before stepping into the bath. You follow suit, though your towel triangle looks more like a lopsided dumpling. Edo society placed huge emphasis on public conduct, and the bathhouse was no exception. Cleanliness was virtue. Sloppiness? Embarrassment. Historians still argue whether bath attendants enforced actual rules or just maintained social pressure through wordless glances and subtle gestures. But the truth is, Everyone knew the expectations. The culture taught you through whispers, through imitation, through the quiet shame of someone moving their bucket slightly further away from you if you got it wrong. One quirk, some sento offered a bonus service, a professional back scrubber. You'd sit still while someone carefully scrubbed you down from shoulder to waist using a soft towel soaked in rice bran water. It was considered a bit indulgent, like ordering dessert and a second tea, but well within the bounds of politeness. You notice a boy and his grandmother next to you. She's teaching him how to wash behind his ears. Not scolding, just gently guiding his hand in a circular motion, whispering a song about soap bubbles dancing off the dragonfly's wing. You don't know whether to smile or cry. Once you've scrubbed correctly this time, you slip into the hot bath. And this time, you belong. No one shifts away. One man nods at you and says something about the weather. Another recommends the tofu from the vendor 2 streets over. You nod, steam rising from your head like you're steeping in community approval. You lean back and stare at the wooden ceiling, where condensation hangs like sleepy stars. And just when you're drifting into complete brain melt, a bath attendant walks slowly past. She doesn't look at you. She doesn't need to. Her silence says it all. You're doing fine. Afterward, in the dressing room, you notice a line of folded towels, all identical in size, shape, and scent. Each guest leaves their used cloth perfectly arranged on a wooden tray. It's not required. No one checks, but you do it too almost automatically. There's something deeply peaceful in participating in a shared rhythm, something that says we're all in this together, even when naked. A quirky practice? Some Edoites, especially poets or scholars, brought tiny notebooks into the bathhouse. Waterproof paper, wax-coated and bound with string, allowed them to jot down thoughts while soaking. Poems written mid-soak were said to carry a special clarity, as if steam could lift the fog from your mind. You dress slowly, your robe now slightly damp from the heat of your skin. The air outside feels cool and crisp by comparison. Another Yuna offers you a tiny cup of shiso leaf tea as you exit. You bow. She bows deeper. You walk on, towel tucked neatly under your arm, hair slightly damp, skin warm and glowing. But more importantly, you were seen today and you passed. Cleanliness in Edo isn't a private act. It's a communal language, subtle and expressive. You've learned to speak it one bucket of water at a time. By now, the city has fully awakened. Vendors are shouting prices for daikon and dried squid. The clack of get a sandals mixes with the rhythmic creak of delivery carts. And somewhere nearby, someone is already singing while pounding rice into machi. But you find yourself pulled down a quieter street lined with family homes, tiny shrines, and potted bonsai trees. And here, in this quieter corner of Edo, you witness something both ordinary and remarkable. A group of children getting cleaned up for the day. It's not splashy. It's not cute. It's discipline wrapped in routine. A mother stands beside a shallow wooden basin. She scoops water over her son's feet, then over his hands, scrubbing behind his ears with the determined gentleness of someone who's done this 1,000 times. The boy doesn't protest. He closes his eyes, arms obediently raised as she dries him off with a faded indigo cloth. You watch as another child, barefoot and still groggy, pours a ladle of water over her own shoulders. She doesn't smile or look around. This isn't playtime. It's a ritual as expected as breakfast. In Edo, cleanliness starts early. Kids don't wait until adulthood to learn self-care. They're taught from toddlerhood that washing up is not just about being tidy. It's about being presentable, respectable, part of society. And we're not talking about a splash of water and off you go. These kids learn to rinse the mouth before speaking at the family table, wash their hands and ankles after coming in from play, avoid tracking mud into tatami rooms like it's a personal disgrace. It's not punishment, it's habit, a rhythm so internalized it might as well be breathing. Historians still argue whether these rituals were rooted more in religious Shinto purity or practical city living. But most agree, childhood grooming in Edo was taken seriously, because dirty children reflected on their parents, and parents reflected on their household's honor. You hear a grandmother bark a command, soft but firm, and a boy scampers off to refill the wash bucket. He trips slightly but recovers. No one laughs. These tasks are miniature versions of adulthood. You get them right or you try again. And then there's the footwear. Little feet are carefully inspected before slipping into white tabi socks or Zora sandals. If the soles aren't clean, they're wiped with a rag. Dirty soles on a clean mat? That's like putting your elbows on the emperor's dinner table. A quirky tradition? Some families had cleaning songs, short verses used to time the washing process or keep children focused. You hear one now, sung in the soft voice of a big sister helping her younger brother wash his face. Rinse the dragon's chin and the turtle's knees. Dry the fox's tail before he flees. It makes no sense, and yet, it's the perfect tempo. Nearby, another parent dabs rice bran paste under her daughter's arms. She powders the child's neck with crushed chrysanthemum petals, meant to ward off rashes and leave a faint floral scent. It's not about smelling good. It's about not smelling bad. One mother folds her child's outer robe just so, smoothing the fabric with her hands as if folding respect into every crease. She then wipes the boy's nose with a cloth and pats his head, not with affection, but with precision. Grooming in Edo could be loving, but it was rarely sentimental. Even hair gets attention. Boys' heads are often shaved in neat patterns, top-knot stubs or crescent cuts, both to reflect class and keep lice away. Girls' hair is combed smooth and tied with thin strips of silk or twisted paper, often coated in camellia oil for shine and softness. You realize now that cleanliness is inherited behavior, not just taught, but modeled, repeated, folded into the rhythm of life so many times that it ceases to be a task and becomes automatic. A child runs past you, skidding to a stop. He bows, his small, round face clean and shining, his feet spotless. Then he giggles and darts off again, careful not to touch the walls with his hands. You smile. You've been here long enough now to know he's passed inspection. Back on the main road, you pass a school where a group of students line up to wash their hands before entering. Not because they're sticky, because it's the rule. One boy sings the turtle song under his breath. And as you walk on, you realize you feel a little more put together. Not because you've just bathed or had your ears cleaned or had your face shaved, but because you've been surrounded by a city that expects its people to honor themselves with simple rituals. In Edo, cleanliness isn't fussy. It's foundational, and it starts young. You've made it halfway across the district now, winding through sleepy residential alleys and lively merchant quarters, and somewhere between a tofu vendor's rhythmic chopping and the clinking of a traveling tea seller's cups, you catch another scent, soft, floral, and oddly familiar. It wafts past on a silk sleeve as a woman walks by. Her steps are measured, her robe a cascade of blue and gray, her hair pinned high with lacquered combs. You recognize that scent again when you turn a corner and pass another figure, this time a young man, fanning himself under a paper parasol. Same undertone, same effect, a quiet trace of something clean, gentle, and barely there. Welcome to the world of Edo-era deodorants, and no, they didn't come in stick form. In a culture that prized subtle cleanliness over aggressive masking, Edo's people turned to the natural world for ways to keep fresh in a crowded, steamy city. And while bathing did most of the heavy lifting, there was always the midday sweat, the long walks, the summer festivals. That's where nature stepped in, with powdered herbs, petals, clays, and oils. You duck into a tiny apothecary, barely wider than a tatami mat, where a display of tiny ceramic pots sits neatly on a wooden shelf. The shopkeeper, a thin man with the poise of someone who once dreamed of becoming a monk, gestures toward one open jar. Inside is a pale yellow paste. You lean in. The scent is unexpectedly lovely. Crushed chrysanthemum petals, he explains, mixed with white clay and rice vinegar. It's dabbed lightly under the arms or onto the collarbone. Cooling, absorbent, and gently floral. You try a little. It dries fast and leaves a powdery finish on your skin. You don't smell like a perfume shop. You smell like someone who drinks seasonal tea and minds their manners. Another jar contains camellia oil infused with dried citrus peels, used more often by men, especially those who wore heavier layers and didn't want their cosodes sticking to their back before noon. And for those who couldn't afford flowers or oils, there was the old reliable, roasted rice bran dust, applied with a soft cloth or puff made of cotton scraps. It didn't smell much, but it absorbed moisture and gave a faint earthy scent, like sun-dried straw. Historians still debate how widely used these products were across classes, but references in merchant records, beauty manuals, and even woodblock prints suggest that deodorizing rituals were more common than we'd assume, especially during Edo's sticky summers. You're handed a palm-sized sachet filled with a blend of sandalwood, crushed green tea leaves, and dried shiso. It's meant to be tucked into your robe or tied to your waistband. The scent isn't strong. It's a whisper, not a shout. And that's exactly the point. Quirky detail. Some well-to-do Edoites, especially courtesans and kabuki actors, even scented their ink so that love letters would arrive smelling of their personal blend, ginger, plum blossom, or pine ash. You'd recognize their pen before you ever saw their handwriting. You pocket your sachet and step back out onto the street, the heat already rising. You feel confident, not because you're overpoweringly clean, but because you're carefully clean. It's the Edo way. As you walk, you pass a group of men rubbing something between their palms. It's wood ash mixed with powdered camphor, used to remove the smell of fish or tobacco after a long day. They rub it on, dust off the residue, and move on like it's nothing. Because to them, it is. Then you see it again. A group of young women, sitting beneath a pine tree, laughing softly. One of them opens a tiny metal box and brushes a light powder across the back of her neck. You catch a hint of iris root, maybe a touch of clove. The breeze picks it up and carries it toward you. You don't linger, you don't intrude, but you carry that scent with you for several more steps. And that's the genius of Edo hygiene. It's never overwhelming. It's meant to exist at the edge of perception, to surprise you when someone bows, to warm the air just after someone leaves the room. Cleanliness here is as much about scent as it is about behavior, and both are performed with the same care. You round a bend and see a man airing out his robe over a wooden rack. Beside him is a bowl of orange peel water, used for freshening fabric. He sprinkles a little over the sleeves, pats them down, then presses the robe between two clean boards to dry flat. Even the clothes, it seems, are taught to behave politely. As you keep walking, you pass another apothecary, another bathhouse, another merchant with bundles of herbs tied neatly in twine. And each time you notice the same invisible thread, a city that takes scent seriously but gently. You press your fingers to your neck and smile. You smell like a chrysanthemum that knows how to keep a secret. Midday heat settles over Edo like a warm quilt, and the streets shimmer with that soft brightness that makes everything, lanterns, rooftops, even fish bones, look a little more poetic than they probably are. You wander toward a quieter neighborhood, the kind where potted bamboo lines doorways and wind chimes make polite conversation with the breeze. You stop in front of a wooden porch, where a woman sits cross-legged, carefully scrubbing her feet with what looks like a small cloth and an extraordinary amount of focus. She doesn't look up. She just dips her cloth into a bowl of water, rubs at her heel again, then rinses and pats her toes dry with a kind of elegance that makes you self-conscious about your own feet. That's when it hits you. In Edo, clean feet were practically a fashion statement. It makes sense when you think about it. Sandals and bare ankles were standard. People sat on floors, walked barefoot indoors, and constantly slipped in and out of their footwear. If your feet were grimy, everyone knew. You find a spot beneath a nearby pine tree and sit, watching as more people tend to their feet like they're polishing a tea bowl. Rinsing, rubbing, powdering. Some use soft cloths. Others dab with rice husk ash or arrowroot powder. The smell is light, almost grassy. Definitely not peppermint. Foot hygiene wasn't just for show. It was tied to manners. If you visited someone's home, your feet were expected to be clean before you stepped on the tatami. Many homes kept a small basin by the door for this exact reason. No excuses. A group of women nearby laugh gently as they rub their heels with coarse silk cloths, comparing the smoothness of their soles. One produces a tiny jar of camellia oil and offers it around. It's rubbed into cracked heels and dry cuticles like it's the most obvious thing in the world. You try a bit and it's instantly absorbed. Your feet tingle, not in a minty way, but in a I might actually be cared for kind of way. Historians still debate how widespread these exact rituals were, but surviving bathhouse guides and household manuals suggest foot washing was daily and deliberate, especially in wealthier homes or among performers and tradespeople who were often on display. And the socks? Oh, the socks. You hear the soft snap of linen as someone unfurls a pair of white tabi, those iconic split-toe socks worn with sandals. They're clean, immaculately folded, as revered as a good kimono. Tabi were made of thick cotton and worn indoors and out. For many, clean tabi were non-negotiable. Wearing stained or wrinkled ones was like showing up to a wedding in a muddy tracksuit. Unthinkable. A quirky tidbit? Tabi were often laundered and pressed with a special wooden board, and some households even had a designated sock folder whose sole job, pun fully intended, was to prepare these humble garments for the day. They weren't just socks, they were your reputation. You watch a young man inspect his own feet with deep suspicion before slowly slipping into a fresh pair. He frowns, removes them, dusts a little arrowroot powder inside, and tries again. This time, satisfied, he stands and gives his sandals a quick polish before heading off down the street. You notice it now. Edo people walk like their feet matter. There's no dragging, no stomping, no toe scuffing. Their steps are deliberate, measured. Part of it's the sandals, part of it's the floors, but part of it is pride. You walk better when your feet feel respected. One elderly man sits beside a bucket of warm water with steamed mugwort leaves floating on the surface. He dips his feet in and lets out a sigh that belongs in a poem. Mugwort is believed to reduce swelling and help with aches. Whether or not it works, he looks absolutely at peace. Nearby, a woman gently files her heels with a sharkskin paddle. An actual thing, surprisingly. The texture helps smooth out calluses, and yes, it's as weird and wonderful as it sounds. You check your own feet. Not bad. A little dusty. You rinse them in a shallow stream that runs beside the walkway and dry them with the inside of your sleeve. No one says anything, but the glance from a passing courier tells you, well done. As the sun tips westward and the shadows grow longer, you realize there's a grace to clean feet, not just physical, but cultural. It says you're ready to enter someone's home, to sit in their presence, to be seen from the ground up and still pass inspection. You stand, feeling slightly lighter, a little more grounded, and a lot more Edo. The afternoon light begins to soften, casting long shadows that stretch like silk ribbons across the alleyways of Edo. You've wandered into a quieter district now, less merchant bustle, more murmured conversation. The wooden signs here hang with the quiet dignity of places that expect you to already know what they are. You slow your pace as you reach one particular building. A pair of narrow sandals sits just outside, neatly aligned. A faint scent of camellia oil and incense lingers in the air. Through the open shoji screen, you glimpse the back of a woman sitting upright, her hair glistening in the warm light. This is the domain of the high-ranking courtesan, and you're about to witness one of the most elaborate, time-consuming, and quietly astonishing routines of daily hygiene in Edo. Forget quick showers and 5-minute makeup routines. These women begin their preparations before breakfast and finish, eventually. Hours later, maybe, you sit outside respectfully, just within view but not intruding. And slowly, the performance begins. Her hair, already long and impossibly thick, is undone, one delicate comb stroke at a time. An assistant stands beside her with a wooden tray of tools, lacquered combs, soft cloths, and a heavy bottle of camellia oil, infused with clove, citrus peel, or sometimes a hint of sandalwood. The oil is warmed gently over a small brazier. Not boiling, just enough to glide. Then comes the brushing. Not once or twice, hundreds of strokes, each one slow and deliberate, pulling from crown to end with the kind of control that feels more like calligraphy than grooming. Her head barely moves, only the brush does, and each pass adds more shine, more smoothness, more gravity-defying elegance. Historians still debate exactly how much of this ritual was personal versus delegated. Some say courtesans had assistants for every detail. Others argue that certain moments, like the first combing of the day, were sacred, done only by the woman herself. Either way, you realize this isn't just about looking good. It's a kind of armor. And this hair? It doesn't just happen. The most intricate styles, like the shimada or takashimada, could take hours to shape. Loops, rolls, and fans built up with wax, pomade, and strategic padding, then held in place with wooden pins, tortoiseshell combs, or decorative ornaments that could double as subtle weapons if the evening went south. You spot one such pin now, long carved bone, painted with a scene of moonlight on water. It's not just pretty, it's personal, a signature. But hair is only part of the ritual. Next comes powdering, an even layer of finely ground rice flour, dabbed gently onto the face, neck, shoulders, even down to the collarbone. It blurs the skin like early Photoshop and gives a matte glow that catches lantern light just right. Then color. A hint of red at the corners of the eyes, a delicate swipe on the lips, perhaps even a dab on the earlobes. Yes, really. Edo fashion whispered instead of shouted. And the final touch. A slow, steady draw of the eyebrows with charcoal or brow ink, shaped not to match emotion but to project calm and self-command. Too arched? You're frivolous. Too flat? Cold. It's all in the slope. A quirky detail? Some courtesans, especially after marriage or upon retirement, would shave off their natural eyebrows entirely and paint new ones mid-forehead in a style called hikimeu. Think high fashion meets abstract expressionism. But today's woman wears her brows low and composed. Her mouth, barely colored, seems more poised than painted. Behind her, another woman gently fluffs her robes, layers of silk, each color selected to match the season, her age, the time of day, and the guest she might see. You've never seen so much coordination in your life. The room smells of plum blossom and old wood. Her feet, now slipped into soft white tabi, don't even make a sound as she rises. She walks past you without acknowledgement, but not without notice. You catch her reflection briefly in a hanging mirror, and for a second, you're sure she saw everything. You inhale. The silence left in her wake is louder than any drum. You linger a moment, the hush of her preparation still echoing in your chest. Then you stand, brushing imaginary dust from your sleeves. You didn't participate in the ritual, but you witnessed it, and that's something. Because in Edo, some forms of hygiene weren't about cleanliness alone. They were about ritual, presentation, and power, polished surface, practiced routine, and the ability to wear yourself like a well-folded kimono, layered, composed, and quietly perfect. You walk away with a strange ache in your neck, just from watching, and the slightest desire to find a comb. The sun is now a little lower in the sky, stretching golden fingers across the wooden walls of tea houses and paper screens. You make your way toward a neighborhood tucked beside a shrine, where a cluster of older houses leans into one another like longtime friends sharing secrets. And here, under the eaves of a modest home, a man sits cross-legged with a charcoal stick in one hand and a mirror in the other. He's grinning, but not because he's admiring himself. He's brushing his teeth black. At first, you think it's ink. But no, this is a time-honored Edo tradition called ohaguro, and while it looks intense and a little like he's been chewing squid ink, it's all part of the routine. You crouch nearby, pretending to adjust your sandal strap as you watch. The man dips a thin brush into a small bowl of liquid. It smells faintly of iron, vinegar, and something oddly sweet, almost like soy. He applies it carefully, tooth by tooth, humming as he goes. And suddenly you remember, this isn't about being scary. It's about being fashionable, respected, clean by Edo standards. See, dental hygiene in the city goes way beyond brushing. You've already seen the charcoal powders and the twig-style tooth cleaners. But here, the blackening of teeth is both aesthetic and symbolic. It signals maturity, especially among married women, courtesans, and high-status men. It's also believed to protect the teeth. The iron oxide coating acts as a natural sealant, preventing decay and strengthening enamel. Historians still debate just how widely ohaguro was practiced across classes. Some argue it was mostly ceremonial. Others suggest it was part of the daily or weekly hygiene routine for anyone who could afford the ingredients. What's clear is this: it was intentional. No one stained their teeth by accident. And yes, people still brushed underneath the black. You spot a small cup of tooth-rinsing tea nearby, steeped in salt and crushed roasted barley. It's used to wash out any residue and freshen the breath. You're offered a sip. It's bitter, but effective. You suddenly feel like your molars could chew through dishonesty. But not everyone blackens their teeth. You pass a row of vendors, where one woman is using a tooth polishing cloth to rub her already white teeth to a matte shine. The cloth, made of woven silk and dusted with ash, removes buildup and leaves a soft finish. Not unlike modern tooth wipes, but with 100% more elegance and zero plastic packaging. You walk alongside her, admiring how she tucks the cloth into a pouch at her waist like it's no big deal. She smells faintly of roasted tea and mint leaf. You wonder if that's deliberate, too. A nearby boy giggles as he rubs a fresh green twig across his teeth. It's from the koromoji plant, known for its antimicrobial properties. He grins at you, half of his teeth still green from the twig's juice, and dashes off before his mother can swat him with her fan. And just when you think you've seen every possible version of Edo dental care, an elderly woman pulls out a small lacquered box containing homemade soot paste. Yes, soot, mixed with sesame oil and pine resin, applied with a feather, used sparingly. It smells like a well-used fireplace and burns just slightly on the gums. Good for winter breath, she mutters, tapping her tooth with the handle. You believe her. A quirky tidbit? Some people believed that tooth stains carried spiritual protection, warding off illness and bad luck. That's why blackened teeth sometimes accompanied weddings, promotions, or shrine visits. Clean mouth, clean soul. You pass another man who's tapping his teeth with his fingernails. It's not nervousness, it's habit. A self-check. In a society where breath and voice carried weight, keeping the mouth in order meant being ready to speak clearly, sing politely, or whisper secrets without shame. As evening approaches, you spot a tea house preparing for its first round of guests. The hostess wipes down each cup with a clean cloth and then, almost casually, checks her smile in the mirror. She pats her lips with red pigment, touches her blackened teeth with the tip of her finger, and nods. Ready. You inhale deeply. The air carries scents of roasted barley, clean ash, iron water, and a trace of yuzu peel. And beneath all that, the confidence of a city that brushes, stains, rinses, and polishes. Not because it's trendy, but because it's right. You touch your own teeth, suddenly aware of their texture, their role in your presentation. You may not go full black, but maybe, just maybe, you'll swish some tea and wipe with a cloth tonight before bed. Because in Edo, even your mouth has a reputation to maintain. The lanterns are beginning to flicker to life now, their soft glow casting puddles of amber on the stone paths and wooden porches. Children's laughter fades into the hum of insects, and the distant pluck of a shamisen floats lazily from a second-story window. But before the city fully settles into night, there's one more hygiene habit worth exploring, one that doesn't happen in bathhouses or behind lacquered screens. This one happens according to the calendar. You find yourself walking beside a low wall where strips of white paper hang from a tiny shrine. A woman kneels nearby, ladling water over her hands from a bamboo basin, muttering something rhythmic and soothing. She's not bathing, not exactly, but what she's doing is cleaning in the most Edo way possible. Because here, cleanliness isn't just a daily routine. It's also seasonal, spiritual, and sometimes a little superstitious. Take, for example, Risshin, the beginning of spring, a time when many Edoites believed bathing would wash away old spirits from the previous year. Families would scrub the floors, their clothes, even the walls with particular vigor, using special herbs like seko, burnt seashell powder, or dried orange peel water. You wander through a market stall displaying bundles of dried plants tied with red twine, mugwort, bamboo leaves, and sugi needles, all sold for use in seasonal cleansing baths. The vendor tells you these herbs drive out illness and bad energy. Whether that's scientifically proven doesn't seem to matter. What matters is the feeling, the warmth of ritual, the comfort of tradition. Some families believe in bathing only on lucky days, carefully marked on folding calendars that hang beside household shrines. On these days, you'll find the bathhouses extra crowded, neighbors soaking together in the hopes of washing away misfortune or ushering in fertility, prosperity, or, oddly enough, clearer dreams. You pass a group of women discussing the best days for cleaning their tatami mats. Apparently, cleaning on the day of the ox is unlucky unless the moon is waning. They nod solemnly, as if this has never been questioned in the history of tatami ownership. Historians still debate the exact origin of these superstitions. Some say they're a blend of Shinto purification rituals and imported Taoist almanacs, but they remain embedded in household behavior even beyond the Edo era. And in truth, the logic isn't totally wrong. When cleaning becomes cyclical, it's easier to keep up with. Another seasonal practice? Rain baths. Yes, rain. You witness it yourself. A boy dances shirtless in the alley during a sudden summer drizzle, arms stretched upward, face tilted to the sky. His grandmother watches from a doorway, unbothered. For many Edo households, especially in the hotter months, letting children rinse off in fresh rain was completely normal, and considered cleansing in more ways than one. Later, you hear whispers of midnight baths taken during summer's hottest nights, believed to calm the soul and cool the bones. You imagine stepping into warm water while the rest of the city sleeps, the lanterns snuffed out, and only the sound of cicadas and your own breath keeping you company. You pass a home with its doors open wide. Inside, a family is preparing for Osoji, the great year-end cleaning. Buckets line the hallway. Children are sweeping ceiling beams with long brooms. The mother is wiping down the altar. The father scrubs the front step. Every surface polished, every item respected, because to enter a new year without cleaning? Unthinkable, and quirky details abound. You hear about salt sprinkled in corners to absorb bad luck, ash drawings brushed onto the lintel for good fortune, even bath water reused to mop the front steps, carrying the symbolism of personal cleanliness into the public sphere. As you move through the city now, you realize that Edo's approach to hygiene doesn't end with the individual. Cleanliness here is a seasonal choreography, performed by entire households, entire neighborhoods, even entire cities. It's not just about health. It's about harmony with nature, with time, with each other. You feel the gentle tug of the present moment. A breeze lifts your sleeve. Paper charm flutters on the shrine gate. Somewhere behind you, water is poured, cloth is wrung, and old energy flows quietly down a wooden gutter. You glance up at the sky. It's the right kind of twilight, the one where the city blurs at the edges, and cleanliness feels less like something you do, and more like something you are. Twilight has fully settled over Edo now, with a lavender haze softening the rooftops and the last of the swallows darting back to their nests. Lanterns glow like sleepy eyes, casting gentle halos onto the dirt streets, and smoke from household hearths curls lazily upward like dreams waiting to happen. And just when you think the day can't possibly get any more soothing, You're invited into someone's home for an evening bath. It's a private residence this time, not a sento. A small wooden house with low eaves and a polished genkan where you slip off your sandals and step onto smooth tatami. The sounds are soft. A kettle bubbling, someone folding laundry, the faint scrape of a comb through damp hair. The family matriarch greets you with a nod and motions you toward the back of the house, where the furo or family bath waits. This isn't a grand space. It's a modest wooden room, the floor slightly slanted toward a drain. In the corner, a deep wooden tub, round, dark from years of use, and already half filled with steaming water. It smells like hinoki cypress and smoke and something you can't quite name, something that feels like belonging. A small wooden stool sits beside the tub, along with a bucket, a washcloth, and a bar of what you now recognize as rice bran soap. No one rushes you. The bath isn't timed. It isn't transactional. It's family. You sit, scoop water over your shoulders, and begin the now familiar ritual. Scrub, rinse, pause. Your muscles remember the rhythm. And as you wash, you hear voices from the main room. Gentle gossip, a clink of bowls, the laughter of a child who has probably just thrown something sticky. This bath isn't silent like the sento. It's alive, woven into the hum of the home. Steam rises around you like a veil. You feel the ache of the day lifting from your shoulders. One by one, family members join, not all at once, but in quiet sequence. The grandfather enters first, washing carefully before slipping into the tub with a sigh that sounds older than the house itself. Then the mother, brushing her hair while supervising a young boy who dunks his toes in the rinse bucket and squeals. You step aside when it's their turn to soak, wrapping yourself in a thin cotton robe offered to you by the eldest daughter. It smells of sun-dried linen and just a hint of smoke. Historians still puzzle over how much privacy existed around family bathing in Edo. Some argue that gender separation was more relaxed in certain households, particularly among commoners. Others believe it was more structured, with assigned times and specific rules. But what's clear is that the bath was a space of family connection, not separation. You're handed a bowl of roasted barley tea, still warm, and sit near the sliding door that opens into a tiny inner garden. The sound of water dripping into a stone basin mingles with distant night insects. It's quiet, but never empty. And the gossip? Oh, it's flowing. They talk about the neighbor's new rooster, who apparently thinks 3 a.m. is an appropriate wake-up time. They talk about the daughter's kimono, which shrank slightly in the wash because someone forgot to rinse the starch properly. They even talk about you in soft, amused tones, as if it's completely natural that you're here, an outsider soaking like a radish in their domestic stew. A quirky tidbit: some Edo households used bathwater for more than just bathing. The leftover water, still warm, might be used to wash laundry, mop the genkan, or even water plants. The phrase, "don't waste the bath," wasn't just economic, it was spiritual. Every drop had value. You're offered a wooden comb to brush your hair as it dries, and someone gently places a cloth-wrapped bundle beside you. A clean set of inner robes, folded with the kind of care usually reserved for temple offerings. And as the family finishes their turn, one by one, the air cools, the laughter quiets, and the tub's steam fades into the ceiling beams. You hear someone humming a lullaby in the next room. The smell of freshly laid tatami mixes with old cedar and warm skin. You lie back on a futon, hair still damp, face freshly cleaned, and skin flushed with heat. In Edo, bathing isn't just about removing dirt. It's about making space in your home, your body, your mind. It's about gathering around warmth when the outside world cools. It's about looking at someone across a room, through steam and quiet and tea-scented air, and knowing, we are clean, we are calm, we are here. And as the paper lantern flickers gently above you, casting shadows that drift like dreams along the wall, you realize this isn't a ritual you'll forget. This is how families hold each other together, with water, with warmth, and with the simple, timeless act of sharing a bath. You awaken, or maybe just float up slightly, from the edge of sleep. A breeze filters in through the slatted window, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and grilled eggplant. Somewhere a dog barks, a cart creaks past on wooden wheels. Morning hasn't come yet, but the bath has ended, the home is quiet, and the stillness feels sacred. Then someone sneezes, followed by a second one. You hear muffled coughing behind the shoji, and a kettle rattles into a boil. Someone's come down with a cold. But in Edo, this isn't cause for panic. It's cause for steam. You're ushered into a corner of the house where a small brazier is being stoked. A bamboo bucket filled with hot water rests atop it, and into that water the mother begins sprinkling an odd assortment of items. Orange peels, ginger slices, a handful of mustard seeds, and something that smells distinctly like ground turnip greens. Welcome to the Edo-era equivalent of Vicks VapoRub, only without the blue goo and corporate branding. This is the world of sickday hygiene, where the line between cleanliness and healing blurs into fragrant vapor. The child with the cold sits cross-legged beneath a cloth tent, breathing in the steam while sipping warm plum tea with honey. His cheeks are flushed, but his eyes are brighter already. Another sibling fans the steam toward his face with a paper uchiwa, carefully timed with his breaths. No rushing, no complaints. Edo families didn't view illness as a failure of hygiene, but rather as a signal to double down on it. You're offered a towel soaked in yuzu peel water and wrung until just damp. It's placed over your neck and shoulders, cooling, fragrant, slightly tingly. The scent lifts your sinuses and softens something inside your chest. You almost wish you had a cold, just to justify the treatment. Nearby, the grandmother soaks mustard powder in warm water and prepares a foot wrap. Yes, a mustard foot wrap. She explains that it draws heat down from the head and chest, helping relieve congestion. You slip your feet in just to be polite, and instantly feel a gentle warmth rise from your toes to your temples. Historians still debate the medical efficacy of many Edo home remedies, but contemporary writings show they were deeply embedded in household life. The line between cleaning and healing was thin. To bathe was to recover. To steam was to soothe. To powder the body was to protect it from ill humors and wandering spirits. And these remedies weren't confined to human use. You spot a cat, yes, a house cat, having its paws gently wiped with a cloth soaked in rice vinegar. Apparently, it stepped through something unspeakable in the alley. The cat is unmoved. You are astonished. A quirky tidbit? Some Edoites believed that illness could be lessened by changing the smell of the body. A person with a cold might rub crushed green tea leaves mixed with salt under their arms or behind their knees to redirect the sickness. Whether it worked or not is anyone's guess, but the house certainly smells better. Later that night, the mother wipes down every surface the sick child touched. Not with chemicals, of course, but with boiled mugwort water, said to cleanse bad energy and kill invisible mischief. She hums as she works, a lullaby with no clear melody, just rhythm and memory. The futon is aired out in the side room. The dishes used by the child are washed separately and dried in direct moonlight, thought to be mildly purifying, and at the very least, poetic. And then, as the kettle is rinsed and the brazier dimmed, the family finally settles again. The child sleeps. The steam rises in gentler curls now. You sit quietly on the porch, feet still warm from mustard, your own breath more even than before. This wasn't modern medicine, but it was care. Detailed, intentional, and rooted in a world where to cleanse the body was to comfort the soul. In Edo, sick days weren't an interruption of hygiene. They were an intensification of it. You didn't hide your cough. You opened a window. You didn't isolate shamefully. You gathered the herbs, the cloth, the warmth. And you didn't fear the illness. You honored it with ritual and you cleaned your way through it. The night stretches on, hushed now, interrupted only by the occasional creak of a door or the distant roll of a bamboo screen catching the wind. Most of Edo sleeps, but not everyone. You stir and follow a dim candle's flicker into the front room of the house, where a few members of the family are still awake, engaged in what, at first, looks like nothing more than idle fidgeting. But you soon realize what you're seeing is yet another layer of Edo hygiene. This time, the smallest parts of the body, nails, fans, face cloths, the unsung heroes of cleanliness. A teenage girl sits cross-legged by the hearth, filing her fingernails with a curved shell, not out of vanity but routine. She dusts the debris into a little ceramic dish and carefully shapes each nail into a smooth oval. Not too long, not too short. Clean nails, clean intentions, she mutters, more to herself than anyone. In Edo, nails weren't often polished, but they were kept neat, clean, and symmetrical. Long nails were a liability, especially in a world where you were constantly tying knots, folding paper, or cooking over an open flame. For women, elegant fingers were admired, but dirty fingernails? Social disgrace. You're handed a smooth pebble to gently rub your own nails clean. It works surprisingly well. Someone offers you a toothpick carved from bamboo to tidy the edges. You do your best. Nearby, the family matriarch tends to her sensu, a folding fan of lacquered ribs and dyed paper. She wipes it gently with a barely damp cloth, carefully brushing the edges with a feather to remove any lingering ash or dust. In Edo, fans were more than accessories. They were an extension of the body, especially during summer. To wave one with grimy fingers was almost criminal. You cleaned your fan. like you cleaned your face. Speaking of which, there's also the face cloth. Not the kind you'd use in the bath. This one is smaller, softer, folded into perfect quarters and kept in the sleeve of one's kimono, used to dab sweat, dust, or to cover the mouth while laughing. In a culture of presentation, such a cloth was essential, and often gently perfumed with a single drop of plum blossom oil. You watch the young boy from earlier lay out 3 cloths beside his futon. One for his brow, one for his hands. One, curiously, is being used to polish the brass fittings of the household altar. He doesn't speak, just hums a tune you recognize from the bathhouse. Quirky fact, some Edoites even applied a tiny trace of charcoal to their fingernails, not for color, but to strengthen the nail and protect against fungal infection. Others buffed their nails with fine white ash until they gleamed softly like polished shell. There's a rhythm to this small-scale care. Wipe, brush, fold, dab. Each movement quiet, repetitive, thoughtful. You mimic their actions, running your fingers over your palms, checking your own edges. There's something grounding about this attention to the little things. Even ears, you discover, get their due diligence. The grandmother beckons you over and produces a mimikaki, a tiny bamboo scoop used to gently clean the ears. Not jammed, just lightly rotated, brushed, and then wiped on a square of folded paper. You feel your breath slow with each careful motion. Who knew inner ear care could feel like a lullaby? Historians note that these rituals weren't always written about, but they were everywhere, passed down silently, mother to daughter, father to son. Clean hands, clear brows, quiet dignity. And what about feet? Yes, again. The evening wash was often followed by a second wipe down before sleep. A child now rinses her soles with warm cloths dipped in camphor water, careful to dry between each toe. No fungus, no filth, no forgetting. Even the family's wooden combs are cleaned tonight, soaked briefly in hot water, then wiped with a cloth infused with vinegar. Nothing is too minor. Every object that touches skin must be cared for, respected, and tucked away in its rightful place. You're handed a tiny bundle of cloth, tied with red thread. Inside, your own cleaning set, a rag, a miniature fan brush, and a folded strip of oil paper for your nails. No one tells you to use it, but you do, carefully, quietly, because now, you understand, cleanliness in Edo isn't just about bathing or scent or even health. It's about tending the details, the corners, the quiet edges, the in-between. As the candle flickers lower and the room settles into silence, you tuck your cleaning cloth into your sleeve. Your nails are smooth, your ears are clear, your breath slow. It's late, you are tired. But in the soft light of a city that cleans itself down to the fingertips, you've never felt more held. You awaken to the rhythmic creak of sliding doors and the faint thump of broom against wooden floorboard. The sun has barely stretched over the rooftops, but the house is already in motion, a quiet symphony of sweeping, dusting, and deliberate footsteps. You shuffle into the corridor, still drowsy, and almost trip over a straw broom lying neatly beside the entry mat. The mother of the house greets you with a smile and hands you a wooden cleaning paddle, as if this is the most natural thing to do before breakfast. Today, you learn how merchants clean to impress. Because in Edo, your floor isn't just a surface, it's a message. You follow the mother as she sweeps out the front step, flicking away dust like she's sending out bad omens. The wooden walkway outside is brushed, wiped, and then polished with a soft cloth, a treatment not unlike that of a prized tea bowl. A man from across the street watches from behind his merchant stall. His front stoop, you notice, gleams, not flashy, just unmistakably clean, not a leaf out of place. You realize quickly, merchant cleanliness is competitive. Inside, the floors are scrubbed with cloths dipped in rice water, the leftover starch-rich liquid from rinsing rice, believed to leave a slight sheen on wooden planks. It smells faintly of grain and effort. The merchant class in Edo may not have worn swords or sat in castles, but they fought their own battles, with scrub brushes and reputations. The entryway, Genkan, is spotless. A carefully chosen pot of seasonal flowers sits beside a low bench, and the family crest is etched into the doorframe, lightly polished with camellia oil. It says, "We are trustworthy. We are prepared. We are open for business." Historians note that in a time when advertising was limited and signage modest, a clean shopfront spoke volume. Clients judged by surfaces, and an unkempt floor could imply disorder in bookkeeping, laziness in delivery, or even moral failure. Cleanliness was branding. You help the son wipe down the shutters with a cloth soaked in vinegar and water, said to discourage insects and leave the wood smelling fresh. He does it with the same seriousness one might show when reciting family prayers. This isn't just maintenance, pride. The store's tatami mat is brushed with a soft horsehair whisk, lifting invisible crumbs and realigning the grain. Then it's gently misted with water infused with green tea leaves, both to deodorize and to calm the air before guests arrive. And speaking of guests, you're warned half-jokingly that no customer should ever see a dusty corner, or the entire family will be haunted by shame and perhaps a drop in sales. You watch as the merchant himself, a man with a soft beard and sharper eyebrows, polishes his inkstone before beginning his ledgers for the day. Even tools for writing must gleam. He wipes the brush handles with cloth, aligns them precisely, blows dust from the ridge of his abacus. You realize that in this world, cleanliness is a kind of currency, a quirky tradition. Some shops would sweep the street in front of their neighbors' stalls, not out of generosity, but to subtly shame the neighbor into matching the effort. Passive-aggressive hygiene, if you will. Others tied herbal sachets to their awnings, lavender, mugwort, dried orange peel, not only for scent, but to signal, we keep ourselves tidy enough to handle delicate goods. You're handed a small brass bell to polish. It's for the store's entrance, a chime that announces customers with a pleasing sound and a pleasing shine. You wipe it with cloth and a trace of sake, used here not for celebration but for polishing copper. The result is gleaming, like pride with a handle. Before long, the store is ready to open. Sliding doors pulled back, wares displayed, incense lit, but not overpowering. The scent is just enough to catch attention. Beneath it, polished wood, fresh tea, and the faint sweetness of effort. The first customer steps through the door, and everything hums into motion. No one bows frantically, no sales pitches are shouted, but every corner, every single one, whispers the same message. You can trust us, look how we clean. You take a last glance at your own sleeve. There's a smudge of rice water on the cuff. Not dirt, evidence. Proof that you, too, have been part of this quiet war for respect. In Edo, merchants may trade in goods, but they trade with cleanliness. The day rolls onward, and with it, the city breathes into a slower rhythm. Morning rushes fade into mid-afternoon stillness. You wander through a quieter lane, flanked by walls of bamboo fencing and narrow gardens, where moss creeps contentedly along the stone. Then you hear a discreet rustle behind a woven curtain. A man ducks into a narrow, changing area, adjusting his robe. And that's when it strikes you. Beneath all the layers, beneath all the polish and powder, Edoites are hiding a particular kind of truth. Underwear was never meant to be glamorous, but it was, in its own way, an essential part of the hygiene story. You've now arrived at one of Edo's least discussed, most real routines, what people wore under all those robes and how they dealt with the chafing. You're invited into a textile stall, where the merchant enthusiastically pulls out a display of fundoshi, traditional Japanese undergarments, made of long strips of cloth carefully folded, looped, and tied around the hips. He demonstrates the technique with the flair of a magician. Twist, tuck, pull, done. You try not to imagine what happens if someone ties it too loosely. Fundoshi weren't just for men, though that's where they're most famously used. Women also had their own versions, serasure, long cotton wrappings used to support the chest or hips, often layered tightly for both structure and hygiene. They served as both undergarments and sweat management systems, especially during the humid summer months. And that was the point. The layers absorbed sweat, trapped odor, and kept the outer kimono fresh. Historians still debate just how frequently undergarments were changed, daily, weekly, by season. But records from city manuals and housekeeping guides suggest that rotating and washing underwear was a standard, even essential, chore, especially for working-class families. The merchant shows you how certain types of fundoshi were designed for different activities. Thicker weaves for laborers, lighter gauze for performers, silk blends for the wealthy. But none of them look particularly cozy. You're handed a folded set and ushered into a changing room with bamboo flooring and a faint smell of starched linen and soap root. It's awkward at first, figuring out the loops and knots, making sure nothing is riding where it shouldn't. But once tied, it fits snugly, almost reassuringly, like being hugged by tradition. Then you hear it, the sound of cotton being wrung in the side alley. A washerwoman is scrubbing a pile of fundoshi and serasure with visible determination. She doesn't bat an eye as she beats the cloth against a flat board, then rinses it in water infused with persimmon tannin, a natural antibacterial used not only for preservation but for smell control. You approach and ask how often she does this. Every other day, she replies. More in summer. Boys sweat like pigs. She smiles without judgment. Nearby, a group of children run past, their movements uninhibited by layers. You notice how their underlayers peek out from beneath their robes, carefully folded and spotlessly clean. It's a quiet badge of care. Someone took the time to wrap those little bodies right. And there's one more thing. Hygiene and modesty were separate concerns. In Edo, nudity wasn't shameful in the right context, bathhouses, dressing rooms, the home. But wearing clean undergarments, that was a matter of discipline, not decency. If your fundoshi was ragged or your serasure stained, you weren't just sloppy. You were careless with your body and disrespectful to the people who had to smell you on the tram. A quirky fact, some wealthier Edoites even had their undergarments scented with clove or powdered camellia bark, not to impress anyone, but to prevent chafing and leave behind a soft trail of, "I try harder than you do." You find yourself adjusting the tie of your own fundoshi, strangely proud. It's not glamorous, it's not embroidered, but it's intentional, like everything else here. Later that evening, you pass a row of robes fluttering in the breeze, each layered over drying undergarments, arranged on bamboo racks like laundry and origami had a thoughtful baby. You realize that the unspoken rules of Edo hygiene extend all the way down to what people never see. Because sometimes, respect begins beneath the surface, between the layers, in the places where sweat gathers and care begins. Dusk has deepened into full evening now. The sounds of Edo quiet into something softer, shoji doors sliding shut, cooking fires crackling down, a shamisen playing somewhere far away like a memory half-remembered. Lanterns sway gently in the breeze, their light dimmed like the city's own eyelids beginning to close. And yet, your feet find themselves heading not to a futon, but toward something even older than sleep, something sacred. At the top of a stone stairway flanked by mossy lanterns sits a small Shinto shrine, glowing faintly beneath a thick canopy of trees. Incense drifts in thin tendrils from copper bowls, and a wooden ladle rests delicately atop a wash basin of still, clear water. A woman stands quietly, motionless, her hands folded at her waist. You're about to learn that hygiene in Edo isn't just physical, it's spiritual. The temazuya, the ritual hand-washing station at the entrance of every shrine, is your first stop. The process is simple, but the precision, that's where the magic lies. You lift the ladle with your right hand and pour water over your left. Then switch left hand over right. Then rinse your mouth, not by drinking, but by letting the water trickle from your palm. You don't spit back into the basin. That would be unthinkable. This isn't about germs. It's about purification. You don't dry your hands. You don't speak. You simply step forward, cleaner in a way that has nothing to do with your skin. Historians point to these rituals as part of Shinto's deep emphasis on hari, the act of cleansing both the body and spirit of impurity. While daily bathing addressed dust and sweat, these small shrine rituals were meant to reset your essence. A splash here, a prayer there. Not to be holy, but to be ready. A priest passes quietly, sweeping fallen leaves into a neat pile. Even the broom movements feel ceremonial. You realize quickly, the act of cleaning is itself a form of devotion. You watch a merchant kneel and clap twice, not loudly, just enough to let the gods know he's arrived. He bows, not asking for anything, just offering presents. His face is still damp from hand-washing. The water glistens like reverence. Nearby, a family has brought a bundle of white cloth, not a gift, but a year-end offering. "These were our house cloths," the mother whispers. "We won't reuse them. They've served us well." She lays them gently before the altar. You follow her lead and remove the small sachet from your sleeve, the one that still smells faintly of chrysanthemum and camellia bark. You place it at the foot of the shrine, not because it's valuable, but because you used it. And in Edo, use gives things meaning. A quirky tradition? During purification festivals, especially the summer Nagoshi no Hari, people would walk through paper arches representing gateways of renewal. Sometimes, they'd even carry paper dolls shaped like themselves and cast them into rivers, symbolic vessels of impurity, swept clean by the current. You imagine your own doll, floating silently down the Sumida River, taking with it everything you no longer need. You return to the basin and wash again, just your fingers this time. The water is cold now, touched by moonlight and the quiet prayers of others. You feel something lift from you, or settle. It's hard to say. As you descend the stairs, your footsteps echo gently on the stone. Your hands smell of cedar, your face of night air. You are not scrubbed, you are cleansed. In Edo, hygiene is not complete without ritual. And ritual, you realize, doesn't require a shrine. Can be a folded cloth, a ladle, a moment, a breath. You walk on in silence, and the city seems to move with you. Clean, sacred, and alive. The moon is high now, its silver light casting long, slender shadows between the rooftops and down the winding alleys of Edo. The city has entered its quietest hours, and yet, the routines don't fully stop. In one modest home, a single lamp still burns, a warm glow that flickers against a polished floor. You're ushered inside softly, where a woman kneels on a woven mat, a tray beside her filled with objects that glint in the lamplight. No words are spoken. She gestures gently, as if inviting you to witness something delicate, something private yet practiced. Tonight's lesson is in preparing the body for sleep. In Edo, rest is not the collapse at the end of a long day, it's a transition, one that must be entered with intention. And that begins with the hair. The woman starts by untucking a long strip of cloth from her obi, a soft head wrap, smooth from use and faintly scented with plum blossom oil. She tilts her head slightly and begins unwinding her elaborate hairstyle, pin by pin, comb by comb, until her hair falls freely down her back. Then, using a bone comb, she brushes it out slowly, each pass deliberate, from scalp to end. You can hear it, the quiet swish of strands, the slight tug, the sigh that follows. It's not performance, it's ritual. She smooths her hair back into a bun, not too tight, then wraps the cloth around it and secures it with 2 careful knots. This isn't to keep the hair tidy, it's to protect it from damage during the night, and also, perhaps, to signal that the day is officially over. Next comes the skin. She takes a silken cloth and dips it into a shallow bowl of water steeped with dried lotus petals and green tea leaves. She wrings it out slowly, then pats her face, neck, and hands. No scrubbing, no soap, just a cool, fragrant cleanse to remove the day's dust and heat. Then, a whisper of camellia oil, rubbed gently into her cheeks and behind her ears. Not for shine, not for scent, just to keep the skin soft, to carry you cleanly through your dreams. Historians note that Edo women often kept these routines minimal but consistent. No heavy cosmetics overnight, no elaborate creams. Simplicity was considered both wise and beautiful. A curious detail? Pillow hygiene. She retrieves a small, curved wooden block topped with a bean-filled cushion, a takamakura, or traditional headrest, designed not for comfort in the way we think of it, but to keep hair intact, posture correct, and airflow around the neck during hot summer nights. You try resting your head on one. It's strange at first, firm, a little too tall, but you understand the logic. It trains your body to stay aligned, to remain poised even in rest. Even sleep, in Edo, is a practice in grace. You're handed a fresh robe. It's a simple yukata, soft cotton, worn only indoors. It smells faintly of sun-dried rice straw. You wrap it around your body and sit quietly, mirroring the posture of the woman across from you. She pulls out a tiny lacquered box and removes a square of pressed paper, a blotting sheet. She uses it to gently press her forehead, her chin, the sides of her nose. She folds it once, then again, and places it back in the box. Used, done, gone. You glance around the room. Everything is folded, put away. The water bowls are emptied, the towels hung to dry. The lamp's flame is dimmed with a whisper. A small charcoal burner, nearly out, gives off the last breath of sandalwood. The air is clean, not sterile, but settled. A quirky tidbit? Some people, especially scholars and poets, placed fragrant wood chips inside their futon stuffing. It wasn't luxury, it was mental hygiene. A belief that pleasant dreams were more likely to visit clean bodies surrounded by clean smells. The futon is laid out neatly, not flopped, not wrinkled. It's smoothed with the same care as a guest seat or an altar cloth. You lie down. Your body is warm, your hair lightly scented, your face still damp with tea and lotus water. You're not drowsy. You're ready. In Edo, hygiene doesn't stop at the door of sleep. It walks with you into your dreams. It prepares the space your thoughts will wander in, ensures that the resting version of yourself is as cared for as the waking one. And as you close your eyes, listening to the slow rhythm of someone folding the last towel in the next room, you understand. Cleanliness here is not a task. It is a kind of peace. Dawn comes gently to Edo, not with alarm clocks or traffic, but with the whisper of brooms and the rustle of cotton robes moving across tatami floors. The first bird calls begin as the paper windows shift from black to gray to a soft, golden blush. You open your eyes, and even in sleep's lingering haze, you know what time it is. It's time to freshen up for the road. Today, you'll be leaving this part of the city, whether for a day trip to a nearby village, a visit to a temple, or simply to follow the quiet thread of curiosity that's led you here this far. But before you go, Edo expects something from you. Don't travel dirty. You rise from your futon and fold it neatly with the others. No creases, no bunches. The woman of the house nods approvingly. She hands you a small bundle of linen, a traveler's toiletry kit. It's tied with string, tucked into a drawstring pouch, and light enough to carry but full of small wonders. Inside you find a rolled cloth that doubles as a face towel and a head cover, a pouch of crushed persimmon leaves for freshening the breath, a narrow tooth-cleaning stick, slightly damp and fragrant with clove, a thin sliver of camellia-scented soap wrapped in waxed paper, a tiny mirror, barely the size of your palm, a folded change of underlayers, clean and crisp. You notice how compact it all is. No excess. Everything has purpose. The woman also gives you a portable rinse bucket, made of bamboo, collapsible and lined with lacquered paper. Travelers use these to wash their feet or hands at roadside inns where water might not be as pristine or as freely available. Outside, a neighbor is washing her travel robe with river water boiled the night before, carefully scrubbing the hem and collar. The two most telling parts, she reminds you with a grin. They say the clean collar brings a clean path. Historians often note the care Edo travelers put into appearance, not to show off, but to honor the hosts they might meet on the road. A dusty foot or greasy face could offend not just the innkeeper, but the local deity who protected the road. A few other neighborhood residents prepare as well. One man applies a light clay powder under his arms, a natural deodorant that also serves as a cooling agent. Another brushes his travel fan with vinegar water, not for scent, but to discourage mildew during the journey. You see a group of pilgrims wearing crisp robes and wooden talismans around their necks. One of them washes his sandals before stepping into them, scrubbing the inner sole with a cloth dipped in sake-infused water. A bit indulgent but symbolic purity on the inside, as well as out. Before you leave, you're invited to rinse your hands and face at a household basin one last time. The water has been steeped with bamboo leaves and shiso, cooling, clarifying. The towel you're handed is warm from the sun, not much larger than your forearm, yet somehow it feels like it could clean your whole soul. A quirky detail? Some travelers tied fresh citrus peels to their belts, not just as a scent, but as a kind of spiritual shield. Bright-smelling things were believed to confuse malevolent spirits that lingered on bridges or crossroads. Who needs GPS when you have a yuzu peel and confidence? You slip into your sandals. They've been aired out and brushed. You adjust your sleeves, fold your cleaning pouch into your sash, and step into the early light. A child calls out behind you. Don't forget to wash your luck when you get back. It's an old joke, apparently, but you smile anyway, because now, with the scent of shiso on your cheeks and your hands towel-dried and warm, you know something essential. You carry cleanliness with you, not just on your skin, but in your attention, your presence, your ritual, the way you wipe your hands before entering a gate, the way you offer someone a fresh cloth when there's falls, the way you make space not just for your body, but for the people around you. As you join the slow-moving flow of other travelers, merchants, monks, students, courtesans in disguise, you feel a strange unity, not because you look the same, but because you are all washed in intention, and that, in Edo, is the finest way to begin any journey. You've left the soft edges of Edo's homes behind. Now, the city stretches differently, less intimate, more expansive. The roads are lined with inns, tea stalls, and the constant rhythm of foot traffic, sandals on gravel, cartwheels rattling, someone's shamisen song trailing off into nothing. But travel, in Edo, doesn't mean abandoning comfort. It simply means adjusting your rituals. You stop at a modest ryokan, a roadside inn with a deep porch, paper lantern swaying, and a stone basin out front for rinsing your hands. A sign hangs by the door, warm water, warm rice, warm dreams. Inside, the innkeeper welcomes you not with words, but with a steaming wooden foot tub already waiting in the side room. This is standard. Edo travelers knew the road could be dusty, cold, exhausting, so inns provided small moments of personal refreshment, not luxurious, but precise, efficient, calming. You remove your sandals, roll up your robe, and dip your feet into the warm water infused with slices of ginger root and dried yuzu peel. The scent rises immediately, sharp, soothing, a little spicy. You exhale, feeling the road's weight slide down your spine and out through your toes. Nearby, a young woman sits brushing dust from her sleeves with a soft cloth. She doesn't scrub, just flicks gently, moving from elbow to wrist. Then she unfolds a travel towel, presses it to her face, and breathes in the scent of lavender leaves folded inside. These towels are common here, multi-use cloths brought from home or provided by the inn. They clean the face, dry the neck, wrap small items, block out sunlight during naps. A clean towel in Edo is more than a convenience. It's a personal perimeter, a line between the outer world and your inner calm. You're offered a cup of tea, roasted brown rice steeped in hot water, known for its gentle aroma and slight nuttiness. Your host bows slightly and gestures toward a small basin by the window, a spot for travelers to refresh before their evening meal. You wash your hands with shiso-scented water, then pat them dry with another fresh cloth. It's amazing how such small acts, repeated with care, make your body feel seen. Historians suggest that many Edo-inns provided personal grooming kits, a mirror, tooth cleaning stick, oil blotting papers, and a tiny vial of scented rice powder. It wasn't fancy. It was expected. You were not supposed to look how you felt after 20 miles of walking. You were supposed to arrive clean, stay clean, and leave clean. And they made it possible. You peek into the guest room assigned to you. On a small wooden tray rests a comb, a lacquer box of plum-scented tooth powder, and 2 folded towels, one white, one indigo. The futon is already laid out, its sheets crisp, its top layer dusted with cedar ash to deter insects. Even the air smells organized. Quirky detail: some travelers carried tiny sachets of roasted barley ash that could be mixed with water and used as impromptu deodorant or cleansing powder. One flick of the wrist, and your armpits smelled like roasted tea and respectability. You take a moment to polish your sandals. A brush and soft rag are provided near the inn's entrance. Most people clean their footwear before sleep, not because anyone will see it, but because tomorrow's journey deserves to start fresh. The guest beside you is wrapping their hair for the night, applying a cool compress soaked in willow bark water to their forehead. It keeps the dreams soft, they say with a wink. You believe them. The floor is warm beneath your feet. Your robe fits loosely, the travel towel now folded neatly at your side. A final bowl of water is set outside your door for rinsing in the morning. Even on the road, perhaps especially on the road, Edo doesn't let you fall into neglect. The world around you adapts to make cleanliness possible, easy, rhythmic. And when the rhythm is honored, rest comes quickly. You lie down. A breeze slips through the window, carrying the scent of pine smoke and rain-dampened clay. Somewhere in the next room, someone pours a final cup of tea. A towel is folded. A fan is placed beside a futon. You breathe in the road, and then you breathe it out, because in Edo, cleanliness travels with you. In your towel, in your rituals, in the gentle way you prepare your feet for sleep, even when the bed isn't your own. Morning light eases over the tiled roofs of the inn like a soft-spoken farewell. The stone path outside is already being swept. A bowl of warm water waits beside your futon, and the first thing you do, before stretching, before blinking the sleep away, is reach for the towel you folded last night. Your hands remember what to do. You rinse your face with water steeped in dried sakura bark, subtle, cleansing, and just faintly floral. The towel is warm from the sunbeam now crossing the floor, and as you press it to your cheeks, you realize how far you've come. Not in distance, but in rhythm. You're moving like Edo now. You clean like Edo. And today, you'll return to a city that has shaped you in 1,000 invisible ways, through steam, cloth, water, oil, dust, and deep, deliberate care. As you walk back into the city, you pass a street sweeper using a bundle of straw to brush the stones clean. A child rinses his feet at a fountain. A woman smooths a wrinkle in her husband's collar. It's all small, but all meaningful. And together, it adds up to something seamless. Because in Edo, hygiene is woven into everything. Into the way you sit, the way you bow, the way you touch your own face. It's not for show. It's for the world you live in, and for the people who must live in it with you. You wander once more through the bathhouse district, now lively with conversation and laughter. You hear a bucket splash, the hiss of hot water, the rhythmic slap of cloth on skin. It's not noise, it's a familiar song. And even though you don't stop to bathe, the steam welcomes you like an old friend. Nearby, the washerwomen are already down by the river, scrubbing, folding, flicking out wrinkles with fingers that remember 1,000 garments. A man is picking over his sandal straps with a brush. A young girl dabs plum blossom water behind her ears before stepping out to deliver tea. Every action clean, every action quiet. Even the city's air feels ordered, as if the scent of hinoki and smoke remembers you, too. You return to your lodging one final time, repack your travel kit with care, and fold your towel with the same precision shown to you. One square, then another. Tuck the corner, press the crease. The bundle feels heavier than it should. not with weight, with meaning. And as you tuck it under your arm, stepping out into the full light of the new day, you carry more than supplies. You carry practice. You carry intent. You carry Edo's quiet, profound belief that a clean body means a clear spirit, and that the smallest acts, dipping a ladle, smoothing a sleeve, rinsing a foot, are the most sacred. You've bathed beside strangers. You've shaved under someone else's roof. You've folded your dreams into a square of cloth. And somehow you're better for it. Because in Edo, cleanliness isn't about perfection. It's about present. And now, as you walk once more through the narrow streets and the city folds around you like a soft robe, you understand. You were never just learning to wash. You were learning how to live. And now, with the last echoes of Edo fading into the soft hush of night, I invite you to let your body grow heavy beneath your blanket. Imagine a distant bathhouse lantern still flickering in the mist, the scent of warm cedar, a worn towel folded on a wooden bench, the gentle clack of sandals somewhere just out of view. There's nothing left to do, no chores, no steps to remember, no sleeve to fold, just the hum of sleep settling behind your eyes. Your hands have been washed, your skin is clean, your breath is soft with tea and steam. Every ritual you've heard tonight, from toothsticks to sandal scrubbing, wasn't just for health. It was a message to the world. I am here. I am present. I am part of something larger. Let yourself drift through that world now. Walk again, slowly, through a quiet side street. Hear the bamboo rustle. Smell the rice bran, the oil, the faint perfume of a chrysanthemum petal crushed gently between fingers. And as your thoughts begin to wander, let them go. Let them ripple outward like bathwater in a still tub, disturbed only by the gentle rhythm of your own breath. You are not rushed. You are not watched. You are safe. You are clean in the oldest, kindest way. And sleep is already wrapping itself around you like the softest robe. Good night, and thank you for walking with me through Edo.